wildly enough, all of the black people that speak for Trump are like manservants. You know what I mean? So you have Byron Daniels, who is one of the Trump, spokespeople, saying that we had it better. And this is, Tim Scott has said this before too. We had it better under Jim Crow. And so I think like you see.
You know what I didn't like? I didn't like freedom of choice. I didn't like not knowing what cotton I was going to pick today. I didn't like Massa not telling me how to put my shoes on.
Doesn't that feel weird when he doesn't he like when he talks?
Don't do that.
Doesn't I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Remington.
Don't do that.
I'm talking to Remington.
Don't do. You trying to take the Kendrick route? See.
Talking to the other.
I feel like sometimes acting isn't acting.
Oh wow. So, but again, I mean, doesn't that, I mean, obviously, and, there was a clip with him on Joy Reid, and I don't know, we don't have to play it, where Joy Reid said to him, like, okay, in Jim Crow, like, you have a white wife. Joy Reid was like, your white wife is white.
And she smelled like lemon-scented pledge. White woman just a joy to be around, Robert. She smelled like lemon-scented pledge.
But clearly, he would not have been
able to have anybody that gets that reference.
That was from a show called The Boondocks.
Yes.
Clearly.
He goes like 1,000 with these references.
Clearly, he would not have been able to have this relationship under Jim Crow. So it is weird to say, like, the black family, what, he would have had it?
No.
It seems weird to say, like, oh, but the black family was more together then. But like we were.
Wow, he's married to a white woman.
Right. Yeah, where's your
the black family he didn't even want.
Oh my God.
I just want to say that a lot of conservatives like to say, oh my gosh, during Jim Crow, before, the social contract, black families were together, right?
Yes.
No, black families were being torn apart.
Yes.
Since the beginning of this country. I do, again, think Republicans try to downplay race and racism because they want to appease the white candidates they're trying to run with and raise money for.
Yes.
There is a better conversation to talk about the ways in which social policies have impacted our communities and how we change these policies so they're no longer detrimental to our communities. Absolutely. Redlining, horrible.
Yes.
But we're in the situation where we have just seen with the Fearless Fund that we can't even correct the harms and dangers of things like redlining that has impacted our communities. That is the conversations that I think conservatives should be having.
Yes.
Instead of trying to romance these days of old where we were literally murdered for walking outside, where we had land being taken away, where we had people being incarcerated at some of the highest rates in the world. On top of that, where we had black men who were literally being murdered. So to go back and say we had it better under Jim Crow does not make any type of sense culturally or contextually.
I think for me, it's when and if another insurrection happens, because, we're really just kind of waiting on the next big incident.
Yes.
Do you think you're going to be safe? Like, they were ready to kill Mike Pence.
Yeah.
So what makes you think that, like, all of this shoe shining and that you're doing is going to protect you? And then furthermore, it's like, you're going to have black children, whether you want to admit that or not.
True.
Like, what do you see in them?
Yeah.
Like, how do you look at yourself in the mirror and what do you see? And then, like, what type of lifestyle do you want for your children?
That's a great question because, if like Candace Owens has a daughter, like they not seeing no black hairstylists. I mean, be all, you know what I'm saying?
Edges,
you know what I'm saying? It is weird. It's almost like when you hate yourself and then you have a representation of yourself.
Right.
Like, then how are you going to treat this child? Like, if Candace Owens has a daughter and she wants to identify as black or have a black experience.
Does she have a black?
I think she has a son.
Oh, yeah,
she does?
yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
But even then, so it's like, how are you going to raise this black man? Like, are you going to tell him?
Children?
I mean, probably. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating. And like you said, when they experience systemic racism and white supremacy, like, what are you going to tell them?
That Candace Owens got that money from?
1,000%.
Yeah, I think what ends up happening is they'll be like, oh, it didn't happen because you're black. It happened because those black people over there did something wrong. So you have to hate those black people over there.
They made your life more difficult because they don't know how to act.
Niggas over there, don't trust them.
I did I do want to say one thing because I see a lot of times people talk about, Jim Crow and black families. And I think it's really important to remind people that Rosewood exists, Tulsa exists.
Right.
Yeah.
There were hundreds of massacres and attacks on black families and black communities during Jim Crow, particularly between 1900s and the 1960s. So when we're talking about black families and black communities and we need to go back to this time period, we also have to be very honest that we were not living in a kumbaya situation. We didn't have
1,000%.
better education rates, better employment rates, better communities because they were consistently being attacked and destroyed. And so when we're talking about whether it is how we create families, how we create wealth, how we engage capitalism, how we own land, we have to understand that black farmers still today do not have the reparations they were deserved and owed because the government took their land away from them.
Absolutely.
The government gave them seeds that could not grow on their land. The government poisoned their land because they didn't want black people in charge of the land. So when we're talking about how to engage government, how to talk about black people and black communities, I think we kind of got to be a little more honest and a little more truthful about what we are facing then and what we are facing now. Because it doesn't make sense to me for any black person worth any type of salt to have anything good to say about Jim Crow.
Breaking news. Are y'all ready? Hunter Biden found guilty on all 3 felony gun charges.
I know my father, when he was alive, suffered from addiction disorder.
Yes.
So when the comments came out about how he would wake up and smoke crack every day.
Yes.
And someone said, God forbid somebody have a hobby. I was dying laughing.
Wow.
And they were like, people just have a routine and now you want to get mad at them.
Yeah.
It cracked me up.
Wow.
But of course, he was someone who had a gun, should not have.
Yes.
And now is going to be facing a mandatory 5 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. And it said
federal gun, mandatory 5.
It said he lied. Right. He checked the box that said he checked no on the federal gun purchase, questioning whether he unlawfully used or was addicted to narcotics and other drugs. Clearly, he was addicted to narcotics and other drugs. And so by checking no, that is a felony.
Isn't that kind of like a self-diagnosis? Like, I can stop anytime I want.
That's also why, oh my gosh, when Philando Castile was murdered, and because he was smoking weed, people were like, oh, he wasn't a legal gun owner. And that's why the NRA didn't come out and advocate for him.
Oh,
and again, this is a racist law. That has been used and weaponized for particularly black men who are impacted by the crack epidemic in the 80s and 90s with these tough on crime incarceration bills that go back to
Joe Biden. That's wild. This is a full circle moment.
A literal full circle moment.
To incarcerate black people now have ensnared your own son.
And it's
how crazy. Who was smoking crack cocaine. And that's wild. Like this was calling us all kinds of super predators, and they changed the laws around crack cocaine, and your own son gets addicted to crack cocaine. That is crazy. It's like a TV show.
Joe Biden on the cream team. Crack rules everything around me.
I think this is what happens when you don't have empathy and you don't realize that one day you can be impacted by the policies you create.
Wow.
I think it's very important. And a lot of people think that I live in this like theoretical world, but I understand like the policies that we create can either help, heal, or harm. And I am tired of creating policies that always are harming people first.
Does this mean that Hunter Biden is paying for the sins of the father?
I mean, it's kind of fascinating.
He's paying for his own sins.
Yeah, and it says Hunter Biden faces a maximum of 25 years in prison and $750,000 in fines.
I mean, the fines he'll be able to take care of.
It says, however, first-time offenders are rarely given the maximum penalty. His father said he would not pardon his son if convicted. You know what I'm saying? So he got to do the time. So it'll be interesting to see. And it says he's facing a separate charge for failing to pay $1.5 million in taxes and filing false returns, or he can go to trial there. So
didn't Trump pardon his family?
You best look. You think of this one of Trump's. Now we have our own, I guess, semi controversy around an elected official that's been brewing for a while in our own backyard, we have a senator who at one time positioned himself as like a progressive defender in John Fetterman. Remember, it was Fetterman who, with his hoodies and his, I'll have a drink and beer with you type of attitude, became, and, he ran against Dr. Oz. For the record, we supported him because he wasn't Dr. Oz, you know what I'm saying? And like, he became senator. And remember, he almost lost the race because he had this stroke. He decided to stay in the race. He had a lot of challenges. He had a lot of challenges during the race.
You just keep throwing me these alley-oops, bro, but I'm not taking them.
Good. So now he had a conversation with, particularly like, he's came out recently, John Fetterman's came out recently, he said he's not a progressive, that he's just a Democrat. And, he's taking this very, very, hard line on Israel, you know what I'm saying, where Israel can do no wrong. And he went on the Bill Maher show.
Who's also just an avid white supremacist.
Islamophobic.
Islamophobic,
hates
xenophobic,
Muslims,
just like a sack of human beings.
Disrespected
Just
black people.
He's a very punchable
said the N-word, everything, right?
Yeah.
He said that his near-death experience freed him to speak out, and says that, like, I guess as he was going through this near-death experience, the progressivism left his body.
Oh.
And the first comment to this Fox News story was by somebody that said, quote, "Brain damage made me conservative." Thank you, Fox News.
No, so like so the progressivism didn't leave his body. The need to care about people who were white left his body.
Who weren't white.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
Fetterman was someone who ran as a progressive.
Yeah.
He also ran after a black jogger with a shotgun too.
Because
Yes.
it was something that was hip, that was new, that was counterculture, and it gave him name recognition.
It did.
The minute he had the stroke and he became someone who needed advocacy, he resented that and threw away all the people who needed advocating for and decided to take up a mantle of white supremacy and just lean into it. Progressivism never left anyone. What we have demanded is life and love and care and housing and opportunities for all people. And that has always been our red line. And he just decided that there are people he didn't want to fight for. And he resented and was angered that he was being pushed and asked and requested and begged to fight for people he never considered human to begin in the first place. And this idea that we have changed, that we have been bad allies is ridiculous because our red line has never changed. We've always said that state violence, state-sponsored terrorism, police violence, police surveillance is never okay. And so instead of saying, okay, well, someone I believe in is now clinging to state violence as a means of protection, how can we interrogate and have these conversations about how to move forward? He was like, nah, I'm not doing anything. I've picked a side. I don't really want to talk to you. I don't want to fight for these things. And it hasn't just been what's going on in Palestine and Israel. It's also been what's happening at the border. It's also been about immigration and support and disability. We talk about like mental health, but he has not fought to change any of the laws around mental health. He has not introduced legislation that makes mental health treatment affordable. He has not demanded that UPMC provide and cover mental health supports up and down the ballot for whether people who are part-time or full-time. He has not gone down to these conservative states and demand they opt into Medicaid and Medicare. He hasn't really done anything. What he has been is someone who is able to make himself the center of progressive movements, the center of queer movements, the center of the cannabis movement, not uplifting people who are impacted, and then turn around and use his personality and his status to use that to weaponize and be like, oh, if you are disrespectful to me, I may not vote on this way, or I may change my vote on this.
You know what that kind of sounds like?
Whiteness.